Oh,
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Shifting Lanes Garage. Welcome back if you are a returning viewer slash listener. For those of you watching on Facebook, thank you for joining us. For those of you watching on our second YouTube channel, Actual Shifting Lanes Garage, thank you for watching. And for those of you listening on your whatever podcasting app of choice, if you are listening to us, thank you as well for that on YouTube, on Spotify, and on Amazon streaming. Hopefully soon to be on Apple, but
yeah,
work
I
in
gotta, I
progress.
gotta get on that stuff. I need my life to stop, just
Yes.
skull fucking me. Oh, I was. Oh, that was. Yes, after the first 30 seconds, we're all right.
After the first 30 seconds. Outstanding.
Um,
We're still an adult program, though. So, yeah, we're here to talk cars. Thank you for joining us, and welcome in. And Chad, hello. How are you today?
oh, just fine, possibly dandy. This has been a great fucking.
Yeah, this one's gonna be full of swears. We're gonna talk about Chad's car. We're gonna talk about my car, which, as you can see, has the summer wheels back onto it. So we're gonna chat lots of good car stuff and not so good car stuff. But we're going to also talk about a very cool 700 horsepower, um, basically Baja ready truck that Fox also built. So coming later in the show. So stay tuned for that. But if you are new here, thank you for joining. We like to do this every week as much as we humanly can. Sometimes we have other things and extenuating circumstances that don't allow us to do every week, like work or cars catching on fire. So
Fun.
that is the going to be the topic du jour for tonight. And I think without really beating around the bush, let's probably get into that one because if you're watching this, that's the lead-in image to this podcast. So you probably saw it and were like, "What is that?" And yeah, we should probably talk about it. So without further ado, I will turn it over to Chad to tell the tale.
Yeah. So Greg spent $5,000 on his Volvo this week. No, that's
Yes.
not it. Um, yeah. So
Coming later in the show, yes, I actually did spend $5,000 on my Volvo, and I'm going to be spending another 600 to 700 because the rear brake pads aren't in yet. But I digress.
600 to 700. Good God.
Well, they're 250 a pop plus install, so at least 500.
Dude, just anywho, sidetracked. I will thoroughly mock you at that point in time when we get to the show.
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely.
So, I guess we'll kind of just tell the whole tale that was not last Sunday, the Sunday before. So, yeah, like just to reiterate, basically I'll go through the entirety of the day, get to the Mustang, but basically that day, that Sunday, I'd gone with my friend. We went to an indoor golf sim because, as some of you may or may not know, I've been dealing with some shoulder issues. And I wanted to see if I could swing a golf club, in theory, for 18 holes before I actually went out and spent money on the course. It was highly successful. I was a little sore, but whatever. Went out for lunch, drove home, took the long way, as you do on it was a beautiful day. Came home, hanging out. 3 or 4 hours later, I like, oh shoot, we need milk. So I get my car, go to Wawa, get milk, all of which are highly successful activities at this point in time. I get home, and right as I get to my garage door, I have literally just pressed the button to open my garage door. I'm like, I smell smoke, like sulfur smoke. And then all of a sudden, like I could see a slight haze coming through some of the vents on the on the passenger side of the car, and I'm like, so my first thought is, all right, let me scan, make sure that nothing around me is on fire. And then I start seeing smoke pouring out of in that gap between your hood and like where the windshield is, that you have that little bit of space and you have the little drains or place for water to go, but not like leaves and shit. So I start seeing smoke pour out of that. I'm like, well, crap. Something on my engine bay is on fire because smell and smoke, like it definitely wasn't steam or anything like that. So I evacuate myself from the car, and then just in the time for me noticing smoke to parking brake out of the car. Like literally in that amount of time, the smoke went from being noticeable to shit, this is not good. So in that instant, and you have to understand for this next part, where I live in a quote unquote townhome development. Even though we don't have any shared walls where I live, it's shared foundation. So everything's very, very close. Like 10 to 15 feet from my neighbors' walls of my house or what have you. And my garage is on like the basement level. So you have garage, basement, first floor, which is where you would come in through the front door, and then the second or third floor where all the bedrooms and stuff are. And there's an overhang that's probably about 3 to 6 feet. It's probably 6 feet over. So like literally that overhang is now overhanging the hood of my car. So in that instant, smoke. I need to get out of this car. Oh crap, it's gotten worse. I look up and my house is right there. So without even thinking, I'm like, shit. Car being on fire is one thing. All my house, etc., is another. So I hop back in the car, I take the e-brake off, and I put, everything I had into moving that car, probably about 20 feet to the center of our little cul-de-sac. So like all of our townhomes are in like this circle with like an entrance, an open entrance. So I push it as hard as I can into the center, close the door, run, and at this point I am now on the phone with 911. Hey, my car's on fire. I live here. It's probably in everyone's best interest to, I don't know, send help. They're like, and they're going through all the questions and stuff like, are you okay? Is anybody injured? Blah, blah, blah. And they're like it's all this stuff that in the moment you're like, my car is on fire. Let's deal with this other BS later, right? So I've pushed.
Stop asking me questions and get here.
Yeah. So at this point, now I am kind of like 10, 15 feet away from the car as I'm going into my garage. And I'm running upstairs to get my fire extinguisher. And in the time it took for me to go upstairs and come down, it was, excuse me, sorry. There we go. The police were already on the scene. And they were putting the fire out, which was amazing. Washington Township Police Department. And I'm going to go out on a limit. I didn't actually catch the name of the fire department. But it was either by me, Schooley's Mountain Fire Department, or it was Tri-County. I don't remember which. They had the fire mostly out, and now we're starting to look under the car, because when you see car fire, you think flammable liquids are burning, right? You don't necessarily think... anything else, right? You're like, crap, now there's... So we're checking, and nothing under the car, fire-wise. Like, nothing at all. So... They put everything out. They're hammering it with fire extinguishers because, as we would later learn, it was 100. The battery was 100% the culprit. So it was literally nothing I did to the car. It was the battery that decided, for reasons I obviously cannot begin to, I'm not an electrical engineer or a fire investigator or any of that sort of stuff. So I don't know what the cause was, but obviously the battery overheated and then immediately caught fire. And then we got everything up. They have to when they got to get it on the tow truck, because of the angle and stuff, they actually had to keep the e-brake on so the car would hop in the angle they wanted to. But the good news to this was, from an expert source, Jeff, to the friends of the channel, Jeff is part owner of Blue Sky. Him and his team were the ones responsible for building my car. They are phenomenal builders. I wouldn't take... It doesn't matter the car you have. If you're thinking about doing a build on it or something, these are the guys to go to. Their knowledge is insane. Their attention to detail, the quality of their work is all insane. It is absolutely top notch. So we went and we looked at the car couple days after the fact. But the good news is that it had just, and I mean just, started to get towards where the fuel was. Now, good news was batteries on the passenger side, all the fuel lines and stuff coming from the gas tank and what have you are on the driver's side. So it was very far. It was the furthest it possibly could have been from that stuff. That was good news number one. Good news number two is it had just started to sort of melt away some of the liners, some of the whatever, the silver solder, the whatever was holding some of the on the fuel rail and some of the wiring there. It had just started to melt that when they hit it with the fire extinguishers. So by all accounts, another 30, 60 seconds, and that stuff would have been hit, and it would have went from an isolated battery fire to, well, now we just kind of sit back and wait for this thing to burn to the ground, which would have obviously been way worse
case scenario.
Very, very worst case scenario. Not that this is ideal, because when it comes to fire, most insurance companies will push to total.
Yeah.
Because your chassis, your frame, specifically your frame and stuff like that, is usually high strength, heat treated steel. And if you apply heat to it in significant amount and for a significant amount of time, you temper it. Now, you see that a lot in knife making and sword making and things like that, because it gives some elasticity. It gives it the ability to bend. The steel isn't as like hard and rigid. Well, that's not how the car was engineered. So we don't know if the heat got there, but let me do this.
I was just gonna say, do you have the pictures or video from it?
So what you're seeing here is the video the night of, which kudos to the iPhone flash and that guy's mag light. Now this is day of, so like one thing I did want to point out, this is all. So that's the fuel system that it just barely missed. They were looking at the top of the intake manifold. But the fire originated in the upper left here, where you see the yellow and the white. Actually, you guys can't really see it off screen. But you see this hole right here in the upper left of your screen? That is a steel firewall that a jet of fire was able to get through. So that'll tell you how hot the fire kind of got.
Yeah.
And chat, I see you guys active. Let me just get through this. It had gotten through that. So underneath it here is, I forget exactly what, but what we're looking at in the bottom here, in the bottom middle, that's part of my intake manifold, the very back of it. This little red piece you can see right here, that's one of the IMRCs that lockouts that lock the secondary throttle blades open. And then this sort of nice little flame-kissed thing here is part of my fuel rail. So you could see just how close it got to the fuel. But didn't. Thank God. And then, so, yeah, there is some distortion to the back runner here on the right. I don't know if you can see it there, but like on the back runner of the intake manifold, there's some blistering, because these are plastic manifolds. Remember, they're not aluminum. So, and then that's kind of what my engine bay kind of looked like if it drove through the Mojave. But
well, yeah, and that most of that white stuff is fire extinguisher.
Yeah,
right.
100. Yeah. All of it is.
Yeah.
The fire got
that's not from the fire, just so everyone knows. That's from
it's not
the attempt to extinguish the fire.
It's not ash.
Right, exactly.
Still, to this thing, is that the fact that the cars continue to sit with this stuff on there is not ideal. Which we'll get to the insurance company in a second. But the fire was so hot that it melted and cracked my windshield. I got to give props to Ford for their windshield wipers. All of the rubber melted off, but it didn't distort the wiper shape at all. And that was like right there where the fire was. That was like one of the things with it. So
they use Damascus steel for their windshield wipers, apparently.
Something to that effect, because I was actually kind of shocked, right?
Damascus.
Like you could see the hole where it burned through the steel, isn't that
Yeah.
far from the wiper blade.
Yeah.
But
Pretty
anyway,
wild.
just real quick, because I did want to, again, I want to thank the Washington Township Police Department, the fire company for getting there so fast. But I did also want to thank a few people. A bunch of you reached out. I tried to remember everyone, but the day or 2 or 3 after this, my brain was a fog. So Doug, Anthony, Andrew, I remember specifically you guys all reaching out. I just want to say thanks to you guys. It means a lot to me that you support, not just in watching, but in as just good dudes and friends. So we have Doug, Elliot, Sean, and Anthony in chat. What's up, guys? Andrew over on YouTube, Pastorelli. Years ago, buddy stopped off to show off a 73 Charger, revved it, torque converter, oh, Jesus. Hole under the scar on fire, managed to roll out of the garden hose and put it out. Yeah, that's the other thing. Fire is fucking scary. The whole time I'm watching this fire is like, I want to get to it. I want to grab something, but like, I'm just sitting here thinking, like, if it hasn't hit the fuel yet, it could at any second now. And it could have, so like, fire's really, it's no joke. I mean, we see it on TV, we see it in that, until it's like you or something you own or something you're close to. It's pretty nuts, man. And it's crazy what it does. Sure.
Yeah, that's an interesting point really quick before you go on with Chad is like, we watch it on TV and we'll see, countless videos throughout growing up, obviously, fire safety. And, when we're kids, we all go to the fire department to learn about fire safety, and firefighters come into schools and teach us about fire safety. It's very different when you're in the actual scenario. So I have to give you kudos, actually, to that sense for keeping a cool head, grabbing a fire extinguisher, and also having the wherewithal to take pictures. Because without the pictures, it's all speculation. But because you snagged a few, now you have something to at least go to the insurance company with and be like, this is where it started. It's obviously from where it burned, you can clearly see it's a battery fire, but like you have a picture of like where the fire is coming out from under the hood. Like just that one picture alone is so helpful for evidence and for insurance purposes, and also to show like the point of origin of where everything sort of started. Because they could have said, oh well, it was the fuel system, and there's no evidence other than that. But like clearly this is like in one area of the engine bay. And clearly you have video and photographic evidence to that. So huge props to you for actually being able to keep a cool head about it and making sure that it happened, or making sure that it was put out well, and that you were able to grab some evidence to well, one, show everyone here, but also to show insurance to be like, here's the deal.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
It was surreal because, let me put it to you this way, right? Like, where is it? I don't know if you guys are going to be able to see this. This is one of my scuff controllers that I game with. Yeah. It's like $120, right? Now, if I'm not careful with it, it'll slide because like I have faux carbon fiber on my desk. The only thing fake carbon fiber I will ever do, by the way. It slides off, and when it lands, I have semi-hardwood floors. Not actual hardwood, but it's hard. It goes bang. Motherfucker, are you fucking kidding? God, like just rage, right? I'm watching my car burn. Something I bought for $25,000 plus tax, title, and registration. Something I dumped another $29,000 worth of parts into, and another $9,000 in labor. Like, I am watching this thing burn in front of me, and anyone who knows me or who has encountered me in, say, a Call of Duty lobby or like seen me on the golf course, I can be a hothead. And it wasn't that. It was, oh shit. First thought, I got to make sure this doesn't affect anyone else. Second thought was, let me just take a couple pictures and stuff like that. You know, the cops were even like, no, man, like, let's take some video. Let's put it on the internet. Like, you're a content creator. Like, let's go. Like, and I'm like, but my head's not there, right? My head's not there for content. Right. It's like, let me document what this is. I have a video of them putting the car in the tow truck and everything like that, and like all this other stuff. And what we're like, it's a surreal, it's a weird moment. Like, I don't ever want to make the comparison of a car being totaled, whether, you know, and nobody being hurt and everything, to like an actual love you can feel for a child. But it's like, in my head, this is my baby. It's, what do I need to do? How do I get it done? Everything else be damned. And it was a weird moment. Like I said, I know this. I'm like, fire ain't good. This sucks, but I'm fine. Nobody else is hurt. That sort of stuff.
Right.
Yeah. So, Sean, thank you. Steve, welcome. Sean goes, I had to make sure you didn't Freddy Krueger.
And other Elliot.
Yes.
Elliot Alvis, thanks for joining.
Yes, sir. Hop on Skype, man. You can come talk to the people.
I like that you introduce yourself in chat as other Elliot, not Elliot Alpha, instead of
the Elliot.
Elliot Beta.
Well, I think Elliot
Manning.
Manning beat Elliot Alvis to the first Elliot to comment.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, and he goes, all jokes aside, this is Sean again. All jokes aside, I'm glad you're okay. Thank you. Maybe the car can be saved. We'll see. The insurance company is literally told me we have no timeline. We're waiting to get it inspected. We'll contact you when we have an estimate. I'm like, is that going to take a week? 2 weeks? 3 weeks? 12 weeks?
Call them every week. Start bothering them.
No, I do.
Good.
And I don't know if the car can be saved. If it's not totaled, I will keep it. I don't think I'm ever going to track it again unless I put some variation of a cage in it. Does at that point it become a dedicated track car or what? I don't know. That's one up. We'll get into the options. But here, one thing I did want to point out is that this is the battery. This giant hole is where the fire started. So, and if you're listening, it's literally picture a burnt out battery with like all the colors of fire extinguisher stuff. The acid, it is a lead acid battery. I forget who asked that. And that's where the fire originated.
Yeah, if you're listening, it's about the size. It looks like to me about the size of a silver dollar, maybe a $50.
It's
something about that.
It's bigger than that. It's about.
Oh wow! Okay.
It's about this. That's the best way to describe it. It's about the size of a small hot dog bun. So, using like probably like that big. Using my forehead for scale.
One Chad forehead big.
But like one of the things we noticed is that like some of the that's the blistering I was kind of talking about before. It's really hard to see, but that's the blistering I was kind of talking about on the manifold before. But yeah, it was it's a bit of an experience. And like one of the weirdest things here, let me get back to that this shot right here. Windows Media Player, fuck you. Let's see here. One of the weirdest things about this was, let's see here, if I could just do this. Do it this way. If you look at the strut tower, right? We just saw inside this area and how charred to hell it is. Right? Like, look at the difference in fire damage from, like, here to, like, over here. This firewall, even though it got a hole punched through it, did its job. The fire was right here. You could see the charring and the bluing of the strut tower, or the strut brace.
Yeah.
Right? But look at this wire. Unfazed.
Yeah, that's wild.
Like, so the fire was very central, and that's why it got to the temps that it eventually did.
I feel like that, like it is a very clear cut battery thing, because it almost seems like the fire was like in a plume, as opposed to like a fuel fire where if a if, you know if like a line ruptures, you're gonna get either the fuel line like moving and dumping, so like the wildfire then gets like more widespread. But like if it's just the battery, it's like it's in the one area because it's just the battery, and then from there everything else sort of catches after. So you can see sort of a clear cut, like it's definitely a battery fire. This was not a fuel issue. This is not a part of the build issue. It's the battery failing because it's just that one area.
So I mean, it was. Let's just do this. Just leave that on loop in the background for everyone else's enjoyment. It's
I mean, this was wild. Like you're sending this to Hanson and I in Shifting Lanes chat, and we're like, what? This is. I mean, I remember you messaged Elliot in just our side chat, because Elliot's a recurring on the Elliot Alvis, that is, not Elliot Manning. But saying, you know, fuck. And then Elliot just goes, this is Photoshop. That's not real. You're like, no, that's real.
Very
but,
real.
like, yeah, but honestly, the picture, the first picture you sent from the head-on shot, it does look a little Photoshoppy, because it looks like the fire is sort of like out over the hood.
Well, that's the thing. It was coming off of the windshield.
Yeah. So it's a wild.
I wish I was that good at Photoshop, and this is all an elaborate ruse.
Yeah.
And it's just at it's just up
really
at
good and late April Fool's joke.
Yeah, it's just up at Blue Sky getting a crate motor and
yes, yeah, right.
And I'm gonna be like, surprise! It has 2,000 horsepower now.
Yeah.
It's a weird feeling to see something you worked so hard for.
Yeah.
And like, to anyone who knows, like, you guys in chat are awesome, right? Like, but like even just around town. So like even just with people I'm friends with, people who know me, people I used to work with, it's just a car, right? Like, that's what so many people say. It's just a car. But these people, even though they have really a passing knowledge of automotive, they knew this car was a part of who I was.
Right.
Like, it doesn't define me, but it's like Chad and the Mustang kind of a thing, right?
Right.
So it's wild.
So I guess my biggest question is, obviously it's with the insurance company. You said you have a video of it like going on the flatbed. You said that there's no real like time frame from the insurance company, obviously, either, because that's what they had said. So what are sort of the options here? Like, I know obviously, like, just from a basic knowledge of the situation, like, obviously they could total it out and give you cash for it. They might not total it out and you get the car back, but you get insurance money for it. And then what's sort of like the other options other than those two here?
Well, so when it comes to this sort of stuff, it's pretty cut and dry, right? Like, they're going to do an estimate on it. In New Jersey, I think it's 80% of the value of the vehicle is considered a total loss. It's like 75, 80%. I forget the exact law. Because so many numbers have been flying through my head that it's like it gets lost in the shuffle. The fire damage is a whole other thing. I think, so the options from what happens to this car is option one. It's not totaled. They deemed that they have some way of doing, and I forget the units of measurement to measure hardness. But they're able to do some kind of test on the frame rail, and it says, okay, this is good and hard, and the spots it needs to be good and hard in, giggity.
Breathing.
Exactly. And it's like, we're thinking $10,000 to $12,000 to fix it. Because new wiring, there's obviously a lot of stuff. Basically the whole front end of the car needs to be repainted at this point. In addition to fixing fire bad. So Option one, they don't total it. So I send it off to a body shop. They do all of the body work. And then the car goes to Blue Sky for the mechanical.
Right.
Jeff has told me that they have done insurance stuff. So,
So it's not out of their realm of knowledge
No.
or realm of capability.
well, no, it's not. When I was talking to him with it, I was like, I don't know if you really want to deal with insurance companies because obviously they're a custom car shop, right? But it's like they
Right.
take ownership of their stuff. So if something's damaged and it's an insurance claim, they want to be the ones to kind of fix it, or if they can, right?
Yeah.
And then that's option one. Option two is they total it. I get a check, and I go do something different with it. Or not something different, but I buy a new car. We'll get to that sort of stuff again in a minute. Steve, I know you asked. Yeah, Elliot Alvis. I wish it had been fake. Me too, brother. I wish I was that good at Photoshop. I really do. They total out, and I get something different, or another Mustang. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's option two. Option three is they say, here's your check. I go, that's fantastic. I want my car back. They go, okay, it's going to cost this amount, which this isn't an exact number, but from a lot of the research I've been able to uncover, it's about 30% of their evaluation of the vehicle. So say it's $30,000, I would get a check for $20,000 and the car.
Right. Same as like a car crash would be, essentially, if they total out of for a car crash.
Yeah. So in all honesty, if the numbers line up, that's my preferred route.
Right.
Because, I mean, it has value outside of, the engine, even though it needs injectors, coils, and a fuel rail on the passenger side, that engine is still a Gen 2 Coyote with pretty low miles on it. Only about 5,000 miles boosted on it. So...
Yeah, what was the total mileage on your car?
It's like 53,000, 55,000, somewhere in that neighborhood.
That's pretty low.
I bought it with 40... Or no.
You bought it in the 30s, I thought.
I bought it... No, it has fit... I bought it with 39,000 miles. I've had it for 4 years and put on not a lot of miles. And it's been my daily. Just go figure.
Right. Well, for the majority of that time, your commute to work was about 200 yards. So
yeah, and then for the
very far.
And then for the last year, I've had a little bit of a commute, but only 2 to 3 days a week. But at any rate, that is option three, where I get money in the car, is really kind of the route I want to go. Because let's just say I have $20,000 to play with a down payment. I could go and get a new car. I could go and get, the options are endless. And then I have this basically piggy bank. $5,000 for the motor, $3,500 for the transmission, $1,000 for the drive shaft, $1,500 for the axles. The rear ends in these things are highly sought after, regardless of who, for just hot rods, let alone other Mustangs.
When you're doing a build, when you talk about, what rear end are you going to put in it? Well, it's a Ford, 88 or Ford whatever, So it's always the Ford rear end that's talked about for builds. So, I mean, even in the Volvo 240 community, they're like, oh yeah, I'm putting a Ford rear end in it. So for sure, like the whole rear of the car is just like money in the bank, essentially.
So we could get to $15,000, $20,000 in parting it out.
Just on parts, yeah.
Just in parts. There's another part of me that's like, okay, let's fix the motor and let's go on Copart and see if I can do one of the builds I keep telling you people about, right? Like, hey, is there a V8 Vantage with a blown motor on Copart that I can find, or what have you? Maybe I go that route. So, like,
right.
I guess at this point, let me just double back and talk to chat real quick. And then we'll get into where my head's at going forward. As far as what I'm actually looking for. Let's see here. Elliot Alvis, insurance people are ambiguous about everything. It's so frustrating. 100%. I went in there with very, very low hopes because, again, remember, in my early 20s, I worked for Enterprise Rent-A-Car. You don't think a rent-a-car company has a lot to do with insurance? Enterprise does, especially on the local side of things because vehicle replacement's 85-90% of our business. Car goes into the shop, insurance claim. That's why you have $30, $40, $50 a day in rental coverage on your auto insurance. And getting them to talk to us was a pain in the ass, a nightmare. So I knew that kind of that sort of stuff was going to go. Steve goes, your car is replaceable, not you. I'm glad you weren't hurt. Appreciate that. Me too. I did pull a muscle in my quad and in my back moving the car. I don't want to say I'm a hero, but they should build a statue of me in front of my development. Just saying. No, they shouldn't.
Nice.
You know, like literally my Facebook profile picture of me just with a turbo or a supercharger on my shoulder. No. Insurance is real quick to total something. Yeah, like especially when fire is involved, right? Like they'll push for it regardless if the total damage is a small fraction of the value of the car. Really, a lot of times, you have to start talking about like 100,000 and up cars for them to kind of okay, we need to rebuild it, right? Ryan suggests gut it and make a drift car out of it. I feel like insurance is going to total it out because of the fire. Hopefully you can get it back cheap. Full-on race car on this thing is an option.
Be a cool build.
It would be.
The budget Mustang GTD.
Right. I mean, it makes about the same amount of power as a GTD.
Yeah, that's why I said it. I mean, it's 800 crank, essentially, right?
Pretty much. So, I mean, that is an option. Sean Ford goes, sue the battery manufacturer, win, buy Volvo V60 all-wheel drive manual, win second time. I mean, that's also an option. It's really hard to pick a point of failure when they're like this, from what I understand, but that is something I'm sort of looking into, but I want to know what my next steps are. Like, that's great. Let me think about it, but I'm tired. I'm already tired of driving an Equinox as a daily. Like, yeah, Elliot Alvis again says, yeah, I couldn't believe it. I wish it had been fake. Steve, what are your plans now? We'll get there in a moment. Ryan makes a good point. The battery company can just turn around and say you did something to the car that caused the battery to short out. Even though the electrical system on my car wasn't touched, it's one of those things where it's like, nope. Right? And it becomes legal fees versus what I'm actually going to win.
Yeah. You built your car. It was definitely the build that caused the battery to fail. Like that, they also have lawyers that would be more expensive.
Yeah.
A good idea, but might not be worth it.
Doug goes, 12K seems low. It's distinctly possible. Again, this was Jeff's estimate. So that's kind of why I believe in what he's going to... Like I said, I'm already mentally preparing myself that this thing's totaled. Like, in my head, this thing is totaled. I just want them to... I want to know the numbers. That's it. Like, that's where I'm at with this car. Sucks, but, like I said, there are options with this car to make... Because I would really love for parts of this car to live on in something else either I own or, like, even the boys, right? Like, Hanson wants to do this big overland project. Well, it'd be really cool if the motor from my car was in his. Like, it lives on. The spirit lives on. Now, is that going to happen? Probably not, because that kid doesn't like modifying cars anymore. But it's just an example. I've never been more ashamed. Yeah, you know, Ryan makes a good point. Goes, yeah, you need a whole new harness. Yep, most likely a body harness. The harness and over the passenger strut tower. Yeah, we've already resigned ourselves to rewiring the entire engine, which does bring in. Do I want to go? Does like because the way my brain works, like okay, it's not totaled. It needs to be rewired standalone. Like because a Motec is really powerful, with these engines on what it can do and as far as features it can add. The Mustang ECU in these things is really, really powerful. It's the features it has is really good, but like it's a Motec, you know. They're in every big build for a reason. Ryan goes, if the offer is good, I'll sell my 16 PP with that's performance package with 7,800 miles on it with a new engine with 1,700. I mean, I guess that's as good as a place as any to go. What's next?
Right.
You know, again, I've pretty much resigned to the fact that this is totaled. So I'm going to be in the market for a new car. Haltech's another one that's really, really good. Motec just makes a specific plug and play. Not that this is plug and play capable at the moment.
Spoon engines with Motec exhaust.
But they make an ECU that's specifically developed for the Coyote with all of the Motec features. Big fan of Haltech. I would, if I was doing a build, Haltech would be right there. They're really, really good in what they're able to do. But as far as what's next, again, I'm looking at this car may never see the road again. Sad, what have you. Let me look forward to the future. And my first thought was, what am I going to get? Because there's two parts of this, right? It's like, oh, this sucks that this car is done. But number one, I can sit here and say that I had a dream car, I bought it. I had a dream build, did it. A lot of people can't say they've done one or the other. So I'm hugely lucky to have been able to do and enjoy the time with this car that I had. Number two is my list of cars that I've want to own isn't the S550 Mustang GT, right? It's not that short. If anybody has sat here and heard me talk about builds I want to do, it ranges from, again, Coyote swapping an Aston Martin to K-swap Datsun 510 with 360 naturally aspirated horsepower to 1UZ swapping a Mark IV Supra just to piss off the purists. Like, I'm all over the place. Yeah. And you know, there's other cars on that list. Like, number one, I did find a V8 Aston Martin Vantage with a manual, just like Greg's old car, for $39,000, which is in budget. And I'm like, I love that thing, man. Like, it wasn't fast, but it was cool car. That thing was fun when you were going on a back road, and it was fun going 2 miles an hour at stop-and-go traffic on Main Street, right? That car just did it all as far as like just an experience. Presence. Yeah, presence is such a perfect word for it. So I saw stuff like that. Cars like I remember back when I owned my Lexus, when I was in my sports sedan phase, not wanting an M3, but wanting something that could compete with an M3. And then Cadillac, an American company, comes along with the ATS-V. That's a car I've always wanted, and they're pretty reasonably priced. They're right around $36,000 to $42,000 a 1,000 miles. That's an option. The other option is to go out and find a relatively inexpensive, low mileage on the chassis S550 Mustang, and then just transfer all the parts over. And honestly, I don't know which one. If you ask me that question today, I might say, oh, let me get a 2018 or newer S550, because you have the better intake manifold, you have direct injection, you have a higher compression, 12-to-1 compression, if I'm not mistaken, right? You have the Gen 3 Coyote in there. So if I apply 10, 11 pounds of boost to that, how much power can we make?
Right.
Right? Like, that's the thing. You ask me tomorrow, it could be the ATS-V. You ask me on Friday, it could be, fuck it, I'm going to have the Aston Martin. When it starts having problems, I'm not taking it to an Aston Martin dealership. It's going to Jeff and Jesse at Blue Sky, and we're putting some kind of American V8 in it for the trolls. And because the American V8s are magnitudes better than any AJ ever. And I will fight Greg to the death on that one.
I mean, I don't disagree with that one. AJs are cool engines, and they're pretty stout, but overall, the Coyote and the LS are just better overall engines, and also a lot cheaper to run.
You know, let's see here. Andrew Pastorelli over on YouTube. The 5.0 broke your heart. Try a 5.2 Voodoo. It can always be worse. Sounds like you may have watched a recent reel I did.
Yeah.
Look, as cool as it would be to put a Voodoo in something, just because it's the Voodoo, the Coyote is there. It responds to boost better. It doesn't have the oil binge drinking problem that the Voodoo does.
Right.
Doug goes, lots of old Ford pickup trucks would be cool with that motor and trans. So that's the other thing. Trucks. As fans of the channel will know, I've been partial to a first gen Raptor with the 6.2. That is on the board because, frankly, I've never owned a truck. I'd like to own a truck. But again, if you ask me tomorrow, we all have done, ask Doug what his favorite car is or what his favorite project is. And today it'll be whatever he worked on. Tomorrow it'll be the thing he hasn't yet worked on. And then on Friday it'll be the thing he saw on Facebook Marketplace. That's just how we're wired as car people, right? You ask Greg we all know Greg wants a new sports car. And I can tell you with absolute certainty that it's Jaguar F-Type R. And then he's like, man, I really like this. And he sends me a picture of a Chevy SS for sale. And then 2 days later, it's an E9X BMW M3. And then
Yep.
That's just...
It's the nature of being an enthusiast. We want all of the things all at once.
Right? So, it's one of those things where I'm going to have to... It really is all going to be predicated. Because I have one big, and I mean big idea. But, and I'm sorry, but we're not going to mention it unless it actually happens. That if the money's right, it's huge, but I don't know the money, so I can't, you know what I mean?
Yeah. First thing we need to figure out is what is the insurance going to give you? That's literally priority number one. If it is anything less than $40,000, you're and the car's totaled. We're getting Chad a new car essentially, whether that be a Mustang, right, an ATS-V, a truck, whatever. He's gonna be Chad gets a new car, period. Figure everything else out after that.
Right.
If it is a certain amount plus the car back, plus the part out, plus we could reuse parts elsewhere. There's other opportunities we can figure out, but there's a lot of what ifs, but the only thing that matters is getting what insurance is going to give you
it's basically
back.
The big grown-up thing, right? I can dream, but being a grown-up's okay, what can I afford? What money am I going to get? Go from there.
Yeah, exactly.
Ryan over on Facebook goes, do the car justice and give it dignity so you have to upgrade. GT350, GT500 if you do get another Mustang. Here's the thing. If I was to get another Mustang, all of the not crispy bits transfer over. The fully built transmission, which, is nothing to sneeze at. That's 1,000 pound-foot capable transmission.
Yeah.
You have carbon fiber drive shaft, Ford Performance racing axles that are capable of handling over 1,500 pound-foot. Or no, 1,500 horsepower. I don't know why they delineate or they draw a line, but whatever. I have... And that's the stuff that 100% wasn't touched, right? I have Recaros in this, right? So, I do kind of like the idea of, a GT350. But I like the idea of a GT that's faster. Because the GT350 looks awesome, sounds awesome, goes awesome. It's amazing. 8,250 RPM, redline. Insane. But I don't know. Like, I'm partial to the GTs because, like, you can put big brakes on them. Well, not you. It comes from factory with insane brakes. Anyone who's driven a performance package 5.0 will tell you just how impressive the brakes are. Cough, Greg. Cough, cough.
Yes, they are very
So,
impressive.
I mean,
For sure.
I would love an S550, like S550 GT500. I do not have that kind of budget. And I loved being able to tell people that I made more horsepower than a GT500 and I have 3 pedals.
Yeah.
Like that's part of it, right? Doug, again, I don't know if I read this one, goes, lots of old Ford pickup trucks would be cool with that motor and trans. I was also thinking of doing like an old F100 and seeing what it would cost to do an F100 Roadster Shop chassis so it handles with all of this stuff in it. That was something I was thinking about, but it's like one of those things where it's probably going to cost a little more than I want to spend at this point. And then if I'm going to make that sacrifice, is that something I lust after? And I can't say what I'm lusting after for certain at this point in time.
Right.
Ryan goes, Coyote swap an LS car with the engine if you get the car back from insurance. I would love to do something trolley like that. First on my list would be a Toyota of some assortment. Like, Greg will tell you, back when I had my IS300, so damn near 10 years ago, when I first got it,
Yeah.
10, 15 years ago, one of the things I always dreamed about doing with that car was making it an IS500 with a Coyote. Is that something that's doable? Annoying thing is that IS300s are going up in price again, and they're not like $5,000 for a cheap kick around one. Ryan Pulaski on Facebook, Chad, third gens have issues with the MT82s cracking the blocks. They have block stiffeners you need. Good to know. Basically, if I was to get a Gen 3, I would get it. I would drive it around. We'd enjoy it. We'd sell some parts off of this. And then it would go to Blue Sky. And Jeff would, hopefully before it goes to Blue Sky, Jeff would give me a parts list of stuff I need. And then the part swapping would begin. Because I really do like the idea of bits off of this car, which meant so much to me. Because, like, again, I always wanted a Mustang. I got a Mustang. I always wanted a big horsepower car. I got that. But most importantly, this car had a connection to my father while he was still my dad, before the Parkinson's kind of took his ability to live in this universe.
Right.
And, like, some of my last good memories were in this car. So if I can get parts of this car to live on in something else, that's probably the route I'm going to go.
Right.
Because
I like Doug's suggestion. First gen econo line. What was that episode of Top Gear where I think it was British Top Gear versus like Australian Top Gear? I think Australian Top Gear or British brought the minivan with like a mid-engine.
Yeah.
And it had like a supercharged V8 in it and just destroyed. I think that would be a great troll vehicle. Just toss this whole driveline into an econo line. That'd be utterly fantastic. 700 wheel horsepower econo line.
Yes.
Love that.
So
great suggestion.
not to disappoint anyone, but
that's not happening.
again, the next car, truck, what have you, will be my next project, will be my daily driver.
Right.
As much as I'd like to troll with something like that, or like build a time attack Econoline, as hilarious as that would be, I also don't want to drive around every day in an Econoline van and be like, what the fuck is this kid doing? Like, I really don't want to be the guy who has that loud, fast rape van. Sorry.
Yeah, that would be more up my alley, not the rape part. But you know, just like the weird stuff, like this and an Econoline, that's up my alley.
Right.
Not so much yours.
Like, by all means, Greg, Polestar swap and Econoline. I will support you.
That would be hilarious too.
Ryan over in chat goes, GTs are always looked down on by Cobra owners. I mean, it's like anything else, right? It's like if you go on any of the Mustang groups that I'm a part of, and someone asks a question about an EcoBoost, instead of fostering the enthusiasm, it's peasants, you bought the wrong engine, and they're not helpful. Like, that's not how I'm wired. Even when, like, the import kids would come up to me and be like, "Hey, I got a turbo on my, pretty decent build on like insert Volkswagen, Honda, XYZ here." They're like, "I got something for that 5.0," and I'm like, "Dude, that's cool. Show me your car." And then they're like, it's only when they start to get like feeling themselves, they're like, I pull out how much boost are you running? Oh, that's cute. I'm at 11. And then just their soul leaves their body. Like, but they brought it on themselves. Like, that's the point I'm trying to make.
Right.
Ethan Lerner over on Facebook. Welcome, Ethan. I don't know. That's a name I haven't seen or don't remember. And if I don't remember it, I apologize. Are you more set on staying with the American car in case of a total loss, or try something different like a Euro or Japanese car? I don't know. That's the thing.
Good question, though.
Here's the thing. I've owned all of them. I've had JDM, I've had EDM, and I've had, what you would consider a classic American car. Do American cars that fit a certain niche speak to me? 100%. This version of Mustang, the S550, spoke to me because it had the independent rear suspension and that this was faster around a track than an E90, E92 BMW M3. And I loved that. It's like, they're like the beacon of European sportiness, right? It's like Porsche 911 and then you have the M3. And this was beating one of them. And then they applied boost and they were taking on Porsche, right? Like the the GT3 RS is slower around a track than the GT500 S550. I love that. So I love the American being in. If it was a straight line contest, sure, Americans were known for that. But when it goes overseas and it takes on the best they have to offer and it wins, it speaks to me. Same thing applies with like the ATS-V. By all accounts, it's very European and Japanese in its design, right? Independent suspension, turbocharged 6-cylinder, like all that sort of stuff, right? Now, the turbocharged 6 was the wrong engine. They should have just put a pissed-off LS3 in it and called it a day. But that horse has been beaten well to death by many journalists. So, like, I like the idea of the fact that it went and took on the M3. Now, it was a little slower. But it's a turbocharged car. So, downpipe, exhaust, intake, throttle body, tune. Now you're on the heels of an M5.
Right.
Power-wise.
And I dare any of you to go look up automotive reviews of sort of the big four. I'll say big four. Usually it's the big three. M3, C63 AMG, and Audi RS4. Those were the big ones back in the day, right? And ATS-V was always the one that was like the bastard stepchild trying to come in and like be part of the crew, right? So those were the big four sports sedans essentially when the ATS-V was out. I challenge you to go find a review that didn't put the ATS-V first as either an overall winner of the comparison or not the best handling. Every single one of them that I read for a solid 4 years put the ATS-V above all three of those platforms from Audi, from all the Germans. When the ATS-V was out, because I've driven all of those, and I've driven the ATS-V on multiple occasions on track. One of them that I read. Hmm.
Try it now, Greg.
Can you hear me now? Can Greg,
Yeah, you're
Greg is
back.
a mime now.
So, okay. I was wondering why I had desktop audio unmuted and nobody mentioned an echo. That's why.
Can hear you guys. Yes. Okay.
Greg is back.
Everyone can hear me now. Um, Chad was on the whole time. Interesting. Okay. Anyway, so what I was saying was, I dare you guys to basically um, go find a car review that didn't put the ATS-V either as an overall winner or as the best handling of the bunch between the comparisons between the Germans, BMW M3, Mercedes AMG, or Audi RS4, or whatever they were comparing against of the time. The ATS-V, the Alpha platform as a whole, is ridiculously good.
Such a win for
Um,
General Motors.
it really was, it carries through from the ATS-V. Also, it was in the Camaro, and I want to say I don't think it was the SS, or was it? I think SS is on the Alpha platform too. Um, but that one I'm not sure of. But I know for sure the ATS-V and the Camaro are.
ATS-V,
Um,
or the ATS, ATS-V, CTS, Camaro
yeah,
were all on the Alpha platform. I
yeah.
think the SS was its own sort of Aussie version of that. Like,
Hmm.
it wasn't identical, but it did share something's dimensionality. I don't remember
Yeah.
off the top of my head.
But either way, what I was saying was I've driven the ATS-V on track, back roads, and cruising. I've driven the Mercedes. I've driven the F80 M3. The RS4 I haven't, but I've driven a comparable S4 from the same time period. That was supercharged. It was a 3 liter, and it had like 450, 500 horsepower at the wheel. So it was comparable. The ATS-V is by a wide margin, and I'm talking wide margin, the most capable out of all of those, because it had the best road manners. It had the most insanely good chassis. That Alpha platform, man, I don't know why they went away from it, but wow, what a freaking car for handling purposes. And look, the V6 in that thing is absolutely no slouch. 464, 460-ish horsepower from factory, in manual. Man, it got up and went. It's a great car. So, Elliot says the ATS-V didn't win every comparison test. People nitpicked the interior a lot. Yeah, I mean the interior, especially the Q infotainment system. People hated that, and it's not great, but it's also not bad. My dad had a what's the Cadillac crossover? Not the new one, not like the CT4 or the XT4. The one right before that, it was like the XTS or whatever
Yeah.
the generation prior to that one was. He had that crossover for a long time, and he had the Q infotainment system in that. And it honestly isn't that bad. It's not great, but it's not horrible. That was big people's XT5. Yeah, it was the one before that. Um, uh, it was that's people's biggest complaint about those cars, is how bad the infotainment was. And again, it's not good, but it's not horrible. And the ATS has it, but SRX, that's the one. Yeah, it was an SRX. Um, Thank you, Sean and Ethan. But look, the interior of the ATS-V is actually pretty good. It's not on par with the Germans, but it's still very good. Especially with all the Alcantara and the carbon fiber in there. The exterior, I'd say, is almost better looking than the F80 M3, the comparable C63
It's unique
AMG.
without beating you over the head. Like, remember the early
Yeah,
V's? Like, where they were
yes,
so
they were
angular?
very angular and boxy. Yeah,
But this was like such a good middle ground. I mean,
it was a great evolution of that initial design language to the sense that it was just fantastically more attractive.
right. And I mean, well, here's the thing, right? Like, there's no, anyone who watches this show knows, like, I'm kind of soured on the BMW brand. What I get another one, it would depend on where I am financially, spiritually, whatever. Pick a thing, right? Like, but like, I would never say I'm never going to own a BMW ever again. It's just like, here's the thing. I like that it was the benchmark and that we were going after it and we were getting damn close. And like,
Yeah.
I've sat in the ATS-V. The gauge cluster is really disappointing in the fact that it feels like it's straight out of Pick a Chevy. Like, you know what I mean? This was back when Cadillac hadn't really separated itself entirely from the GMs on which a lot of their cars were based, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's good enough. For me, the interior was always nice. Cadillac's infotainment systems, like you said, the Q of that era were, ugh. But
yeah,
I got a newsflash for people. I listen to talk radio, podcasts, and maybe a little bit of music on Spotify. That's it. I am not a big, whatever you want to call it, like radio listener or what have you. It's always been an interesting option. And like, I did want to touch on a couple things in chat and then go from there. Andrew, welcome. Andrew was up at the FCP event up in Connecticut, I think at Lime Rock, which is one of my favorite Northeast tracks ever. I have a really soft spot for Lime Rock. Used to go up there as a kid to watch the IMSA GT races with my father. So it's like got a really big special place in it. The Bull Ring, it's such a fun little track. I don't know if anyone's had really the opportunity to drive on it. They think that one left-hand corner isn't really all that challenging. Trust me, that track provides enough. It's been years, and even when they added the little chicane thingy at the top of the second to last corner, glad you enjoy. It's a beautiful drive. It's a beautiful area. So glad you enjoyed yourself, and I'm glad you're enjoying the S80 because I know you went through the ringer with that thing. And then to answer your second question, I'm doing as well as I'm doing fine. Like, cars are replaceable, people aren't. There's a next chapter of this. I just haven't found it yet, and we'll get there. You know, I appreciate you asking and everything like that. It's life, man. Nothing's forever, so you got to enjoy the moments you had and move on.
Right.
You know, if you dwell on the bad, if you dwell on the negative for too long, like the negative stuff in your life teaches you things, and you should absolutely try to learn those lessons. But if you dwell on it, then the negative wins. And there's so much to like. My car went up in flames, but I still have friends like Greg and Hanson and Courtney and Lou who were in here earlier, listening and stuff. I still, I still have my mother and stuff. Every week I get to come in on and I get to talk cars with Greg and with you guys and stuff like that. All of that has absolutely nothing to do with my Mustang. In the fact that whether I have a Mustang or I don't, Greg and everyone I mentioned still going to be my friends, for better or worse. Like literally known Greg since 1996. Like that's how long we go back before I was legally able to drive. So, shifting lanes ain't going nowhere, and it's doing pretty well. Like all these positives in my life. If I let that one negative bring me down, like, has it been rough? Hell yeah. Has it sucked that the fact that like my car that was connection to my father happened 5 days before my father's birthday? Yeah, it was fucking awful. But if I dwell on that sort of stuff, if I dwell on the negative, one, that's not what my dad would want. He'd be like, I heard my dad's voice like 2 days later. He goes, shit happens. Get another car. You'll make it fun. Enjoy it. So like that's
get over it. Move on.
That's it. It's like it's not a callous reaction to it. Like you should deal with the difficulties of bad situations, but never lose sight of the good in your life. Like never lose sight of those things, because it's a really sad, lonely place if you only dwell on the negative. And at the end of the day, it is a part of who I was. It is such a large part of my life. It is one of the thing. It is the most prized possession I've ever owned, but it is still a car. And I can get another one. And you best damn believe that I'm going to make it fun. So there's always that to look forward to. One last thing. Oh God, chat's been going on for forever. Let's see here.
Rip through them. Go, go, go.
A lot of infotainment stuff. I'm hitting at Ryan. Thank you so much for watching. Steve goes find a Blackwing caddy. Steve, my budget is $40,000.
And any Blackwing is basically 80 plus, regardless of what it is.
An ATS-V is about 38, 5,000 in parts, and I have 550 wheel horsepower. Then I'll go hunting for Blackwings.
That's right. Damn Skippy.
You know, and then who brought it up originally? I did want to mention whoever brought it up. Ryan brought it up first, and I saw Doug mentioning and talking about it. Factory 5 is something we've always talked about internally at Shifting Lanes. Would be kind of cool to do like a Daytona coupe with my driveline, right? Like I have the driveline.
Wild.
I have the driveline. It's again, it's a factor of can I get the kit and the labor for $40,000?
Yeah,
I don't know.
Oh, and don't worry, Ryan. We will be videoing the next car saga. Don't you worry.
I got a video document the next car saga for us.
Yes.
Yes, it was something I was thinking about, but I also wasn't really in the mindset of going and finding my tripod and just setting it up as I watch my car burn to the ground.
Yeah. I think he means more of the next car, not that one.
Yeah, and I mean...
not that moment in time.
That will 100% be it, because believe it or not, everything that I've done to my car has been documented on Shifting Lanes Garage and a little bit of Shifting Lanes. And it will continue to be that way until we get into a space. Greg and I have talked about this a ton, about when we're going to return to vlogs and that sort of thing. And a lot of it has to do with, you know, Greg's a dad. He's married. He has 2 wonderful sons. Everybody pray for his wife. But like, and he has I will say this so Greg doesn't have to, based solely on what Greg's told me about the job and the hours he has to work and the deadline he's under. It's not ideal for filming. You know, when you take a job that runs you ragged, and then you have 2 kids, and then you have a wife who inexplicably loves you, like that doesn't leave much time for. And then we will continue to do short form because short form's been so successful for us. It doesn't really leave time for vlogs.
Yeah.
And I've always maintained that when we vlog together, kind of in that same vein of when DDE vlogs together, it's more entertaining. So that is something we want to try to do as long as it fits within our schedules. But that said, whatever I get next, it will be filmed. I also have some fairly exciting stuff I'm working on cars that I don't even own that we might be documenting the build process. As long as the owner's okay with it, and we can make figure out a content plan for it. Some of this stuff will blow you guys away. As far as you like weird, this is pretty damn weird, in a very, very good way. So, Sean goes, I'll take a week vacation and donate my labor. I appreciate that, brother. And then the last thing I want to do on Touch This, he'll sleep in a tree, don't worry. I have a guest room. At any rate, who said it last? The one thing I did want to touch, Alan Lomili. Alan, how you doing? He goes, what about a CTSV, the wagon? I haven't really looked into them. The CTSVs of that generation I have seen are a little out of budget. As cool as having that wagon specifically would be, right? Like, it's a detuned Corvette engine in a wagon. Who doesn't love that? I mean, I know Greg hates it, but, like, I love that idea.
Yeah, I'm the weird wagon lover that doesn't love that as a wagon, which is weird. But anyway.
I think it works because the one downside to that, to all Vs, with the exception of the current ones, Cadillac does a horrible job of doing the rear wheel to rear quarter panel ratio. If you ever look at a CTSV from the early CTSVs, the first and second gen, the ATSV, which only rides on 18-inch tires, or 18-inch rims, by the way, that rear wheel to rear quarter panel ratio there's too much quarter panel, in my opinion. But whatever. both went mute. Um, Steve might be behind. At any rate, holla if you can hear Greg. But yeah, so just to kind of put a pin in it, actually an hour and 12 minutes was way longer than I thought I'd be able to talk about this. Not from a emotional standpoint of more of a specifically of a holy crap, I've talked about this for 11 minutes. I don't know how much I'm going to be able to talk about this before I start to get. Yeah, it was a surreal experience. I'm happy that the only thing that was damaged was the car. In that particular situation, it could have been a lot worse. And whatever it is, there will be another chapter. I don't know what that chapter is going to be just yet. But you're damn right. I'm going to document the hell out of it. I'm going to have something fun. If you've watched our channel back as far back, I've always had a fun car. Even when it was 220 horsepower in the IS, that thing was still a ton of fun. So I will find something fun. I will share it with you guys, and then we will go from there. I will persevere. I appreciate, again, every single person. If you reached out and said, "What's up? I'm sorry to hear that," all that sort of stuff. I love you guys. And then, yeah, there will be another chapter. I will have a fun, fast car. Greg will not continue. Greg will not have, when he buys whatever, more than likely a Jaguar F-Type R. Greg will not. I will not allow Greg to hold the title of most powerful vehicle in the shifting lanes fleet. So you have that little fight to look forward to. But Greg,
yes,
I'm going to step aside for a second. I just got to check on something real quick.
Cool.
Connect with chat on a deep, emotional, borderline spiritual, maybe even sensual level.
Now, deep breaths and open your boners. No.
Goose fraba.
Goose fraba boners. No, we'll talk about this thing since it's sitting behind me. Also, with the wide angle shot, you can kind of see my umbrella. Let me get rid of that. It was rainy today. Goodbye. So we can start by talking about the Sean, damn you. Worse. The money that I just spent on this car, it was a lot. And luckily, what I did is, obviously, we make money through shifting lanes, through your patronage, obviously, on the supporter group, which is awesome, through stars, which is also wonderful. We save all of that and put it towards our cars. I've been basically saving $100 to the side for the last 3 years because I knew this day was coming. Because the previous owner of this car did a whole bunch of great maintenance to it. But I knew once it hit the 60,000-ish mark, that's sort of a big milestone for a lot of cars, honestly. You know, engine oil filters, you should probably check your spark plugs, your coil packs, and then yada, yada, yada. Brakes. So I knew a lot of this stuff was coming due on this car. And I have a really good folder of what the previous owner did to this car, which is nice. And he did a bunch of amazing maintenance before I owned it. So I didn't really have to worry about that for the last 3 years because the car's been dead reliable. The only thing that's, again, I'll say it ad nauseum, the only thing that's ever broken on this car was a O2 sensor. And that is only because I swapped the downpipe. Other than that, nothing has broken on this car, knock on wood. But these are really stout little Volvos. So far, so good. I basically just put $5,000 into this car because, again, I've been saving up for 3 years, $100 on the side, and with interest that came out to about $4,000 saved over the last 3 years. Because shockingly, in February of 2024, I've actually owned this car for 3 years, which is wild to think about. And it's funny because I didn't actually make any videos on this car for a full year. I'm one of the very few, I'd say, car content creators that owned a car for a year and didn't create any content on it. And I did that for one very big reason. I wanted to get a sense for the car before I actually started to put it out into the world. Did I actually like it? Is it worth buying? Is it fun? Does it sound good? Blah blah blah, the usual YouTuber shit. And honestly, I can say now yes, not just because I have a propensity for Volvos, but because it is a cool car. It's rare, it sounds great, and it's just a really good daily driver. Honestly, it's just a fantastic car. That being said, I saved the money over the time because I knew all this was coming due, and I knew these specifically, these rotors and brakes are very expensive on this car. First and foremost, you can see I have my summer wheels back on. No, it did not take me 3 years to put them back on, as a previous stream would indicate. No, I got them powder coated over the winter by our friends over at Intuitive Powder Coating in Rockaway, New Jersey. They have previously done my white wheels on my old V70R. They actually did my furniture on my front porch too, because when my mother-in-law moved in with us, we saved a bunch of furniture for stuff, and it's a powder coating shop. They'll do whatever. They do wheels, they do industrial stuff, they do metal piping, whatever you want. They'll powder coat it for you, which is cool. So did some furniture with them. I did these wheels, and they did a great job. It's a slightly different color than the factory OEM one. This is actually, it's a Porsche color. It's like it's a bit more hyper silver, so it's just a shade or two lighter than the OEM ones, and they're not a machined face anymore. Like, you can probably see there's like some differentiation in, like, right here. There is obviously the powder coating didn't like get rid of the machine facing, but like if you went up and touched it, like, you can tell it's powder coated, and it's not like a grinded and sanded and wheel refinished thing. It's just a powder coating. So they repaired some of the damage that was on all four wheels. Had a little bit of curb rash on them. One of them was from me, 3 of them are from valets, so just happens. What I did was I had them powder coated. It was $636, I want to say, for all 4. Pretty reasonable for refinishing a wheel, and none of them have damage anymore. It's the full wheel. They strip everything off, they media blast it, they did all that whole thing, and then they powder coated it, and it looks great. Honestly, they look fantastic. They look OEM, and that was the whole point of doing it. So did that. It was like $636, which again was pretty reasonable. There's brand new rubber on them, Michelin Pilot Sport 4S's, which was $2,000 installed, mounted, and balanced. So the price of summer tires has definitely gone up. Plus, these are 20-inch rims. The 20-inch wheels and up rubber is going to cost you a lot. Steve, thanks for watching as always, sir. Appreciate the nice rims comment, and yeah, we'll talk a lot more about Chad's car in the coming streams for sure. And get a good sleep, brother. We'll catch you in the next one. Ethan, I actually have a 2017 V60 Polestar. Hey, Polestar brother, what's up, man? Glad to see you in here. Same color, 2.0 twin charged 4-cylinder, making 400 to the wheels, and an intercooler and tune. Actually fun with the tune now. Yeah, I mean, these are fun from factory, but I just have a downpipe and a tune on mine, and it definitely livened up the car a lot, especially the volume of the exhaust. Still nice and quiet with the valves closed, but with them open and wide open throttle, it screams now, which is very cool. And I like the 4s. The 4s are cool for technology purposes, but my wife has an XC90, and I couldn't have 2 cars with the same engine and the same layout. And hers is a twin charge, so it's got the same thing as the V60 Polestars from the same generation. But with that said, the rubber and the wheels were about $2,500. The rotors and the pads, just the front rotors, because the rotors were shot. They were definitely pitted out. They had a lot of scoring. They needed to be redone, and I was getting a pretty bad vibration. That was not the pads, for sure. So redid the rotors, brand new rotors. And the reason why they're so expensive, the rotors and pads, just front rotors and pads on this car, parts-wise, were $2,500. And we realized why is, one, it's a floating caliper setup, so it's a floating pad, so there's just pins holding the pad in, and it's a 2-piece rotor, so it's a pretty serious front brake setup. The back brakes are pretty normal. They're straight off a normal V60R design with Brembo pads. So rotors are about the same, but the pads are more expensive. But with that said, the fronts alone were like $2,500. So everything inclusive, and I got a lot of this stuff at cost because my buddy Sean works over at one of the local car dealerships, and I go through him to do a lot of this stuff because I get his pricing. Whereas if I went through just the dealership, this would have cost $6,000, maybe $6,500 for everything, which is crazy. So it just happens. Either way, did all that, and I also did a 60,000 mile service up front, which did oil change, every filter you could possibly think of, and I also did spark plugs and coils because I had a distinct feeling that this car was being sapped on power a little bit more towards the top end, and it for sure with the butt dyno, it feels a lot more lively. And Sean actually confirmed that one of the spark plugs, when he pulled it, was actually loose and there was oil in one of the reservoirs. So it was definitely, it wasn't misfiring, but it definitely was not running at optimal performance. Now, what I want to do, I really kind of want to go back to the dyno and the quarter mile just to see what it's like before I do anything else to it. And I'm wondering if we didn't really need to add that E85 to the car to get optimal performance. Yeah, I know. But I'm really wondering now, with all of this refreshed, especially the spark and the coils, will that put this thing into a normal realm of performance based on the tune and based on the downpipe? Because when we did the power at the dyno and when we did the quarter mile, there weren't really any power gains and there weren't really any time gains. And I'm curious to see if doing all this made a bigger difference than just putting the cheater juice in. So what I'm going to do is probably before summer gets too hot, maybe like May-ish, early June, I'm going to go back to the dyno and do another run without the E85 and just to see what it's like. Then if it's still the same story, put the E85 in like 2-3 gallons, the same as Dimitri did last time, and see what happens. Because I'm very curious if the spark and coils were just sort of on their way out. And I've also heard rumblings of that happening to some of these cars. Every single one of them once they've been refreshed, the car feels like a totally different car. And from a butt dyno perspective, it does feel a lot better as far as power delivery is concerned. So with that said,
so let's
refresh. The car, other than rear pads, the car feels.
You went slotted rotors too.
Again. What's that?
You went slotted rotors too. I don't think I didn't notice that.
Oh yeah, those are actually OEM. I mean, it's slotted rotors from factory.
So you just wore through them? On your
Yes, and that's why I needed rotors because they were very, very shot.
I mean, when I drove it, it did not feel like the brakes were bad. But
no, so let me ask power was good.
Let me ask you this question:
good.
All in, how much did you spend?
All in so far for this whole thing was, let's see, 45, 5150.
That is adorable. There are several parts on the Mustang that cost more than that alone.
I know. But, I mean, I'm also not doing, like, insane performance mods. If I was doing insane performance mods, I could easily get north of $10,000, $15,000 on this thing. But just like a big old refresh, $5,000 is a lot. If I had just a general V60R design, it would be probably half that price, maybe even less, depending, for all of that, especially if you're doing your own work. So, and again, I would do my own work. I just do not have the time.
Yeah, I mean, so I think, so there's a lot of moving parts or what have you. We've been trying to do this godforsaken meetup for a while now.
Yes.
I think, honestly, we need to pick a date in the foreseeable future
Yep.
and get at least you to the track and have
Yep.
invite everyone up. Just figure out some dates and stuff. Have everyone come up. We'll hang out. It might even be beneficial that I don't have a thing to run.
Right.
I'm hoping within the next 30 days I have a new vehicle.
That would be nice.
Again, if the Mustang is total.
Right.
And I would be itching to get on said track, but I honestly think that's our best bet of doing a meetup for a couple different things. One, it's a central location. Two, it has food. Three, it's cool. Like, yeah, you're going to be, let's say you're just running, you're going to be on the track, but that's 4 or 5 times if we're lucky. It's just a good opportunity to hang out and see everyone. Again, it's easy, and it's easy for us. Pretty local. So everyone start thinking about dates post Carlisle. If you're in the supporter group, throw some dates out there. Friday nights is when we do the testing tunes.
Yes.
And it's pretty close to like Route 80. So it's relatively easy for people to get to. It's right off of pretty much Route 46. So it's pretty easy as far as navigation is concerned.
Yeah.
And I think that would be a good place to kind of meet up, hang out, and do that sort of stuff. Just because it's what makes the most sense, right? Like for Greg to chisel out time to go to the dyno, for Greg to chisel out time to go to the track, like it just makes the most sense.
Yeah, for sure.
Sean goes, you can borrow my dumpster moped.
Please bring that. I would love to see that on a drag strip.
I don't know if I'm pretty confident I'm not licensed to do anything with 2 wheels on the track, but
that.
My dog is going nuts.
Nice.
Yeah, Sean, I have to leave early Friday or Thursday to make that in a reasonable time. Again, I don't know where everyone lives and stuff. Like I said, I could go. It's like, okay, we have Virginia, we have West Virginia, we have Pennsylvania, we have South Jersey, we have Jersey, we have New Hampshire, we have, Oregon. Central for the person who lives in like Oregon and Washington. Probably not convenient for anyone else.
Yeah, Sean's down in Virginia, I believe.
So like, if with enough time and planning, we could almost make it a shifting lanes of Palooza kind of a thing. Come up, everybody bring their cars. When the gates opened up, we could do a lot of stuff. Like have like everybody park, because there's places to park that are away from like the track itself. That hey, everybody could line up. We could do almost a little mini car show. Like nothing crazy, but like there's just a lot of. It makes things a lot easier from a planning perspective for something like that.
Yeah.
So, so yeah, I got a commercial drone license now. We can do some fun filming. 100% yes. I know that the track has had, I have seen drones at the track. They are very, very, very adamant, unless you have a track rental, that you are not allowed to, or unless you are at a track rental, you are not allowed to drive the drone over the track or within a certain distance of said track.
Yeah.
But I'm sure we can work something out. Like I said, there's a lot of different possibilities. If Carlisle's only like 4.5 hours from you, we're not.
That's not bad.
Carlisle's pretty much dead west of us, right, Greg?
Yeah. It's you go down to 78 and then just drive.
For
Carlisle about 2.5 from us.
Anyone coming from the south, like Virginia, West Virginia, etc., hop on 95, probably the easiest, simplest thing to do. 95 to the Parkway or the Turnpike, 287, Route 80, profit. You know, and there are some hotels around here too. Like it's not the middle. I mean, even though the track is surrounded by sod farms, it looks like God's country. There are, if you go 10, 15 minutes into town, you know, we have hotels and stuff. Like, I could, again, if we get enough interest and enough people are willing to actually make the trip, and I'm not saying if you're not willing, boo you. It's not what I'm trying to say. But like if I get enough people, I could even look into, say, the local Comfort Inn, being like, hey, I have 15 people coming up. Can we get a bulk rate on rooms or something? Like, you know, there's stuff like that I can look into. You know, and again, make a day or so out of it. That I think is going to, like I said, that I think is going to be our best shot at a sort of meetup. Just because, you know, we all live in different areas. I think it's close between Doug and Steve on who lives closest to where like the track we use is. So, and everybody else is a little further than that.
Yeah. But if we plan it out and with enough time,
right? Like if we plan this out for 2-3 months from now, like, you know, we all have life. We all have. Some of you have kids. We all have jobs.
Yeah.
But like Greg sits here and says, "Okay, I don't have to be a father on these 3 Fridays. Let's pick one and go."
Right.
Doug gets the motorcycle running. Fuel costs go down for me. Always a plus. Yeah, and I mean, like I said, I want to get together with you guys. Want to hang out. I love talking with you guys, meeting you guys, and stuff like that. I'll be honest. Carlisle is a very, very maybe for me at this point now. So
all good
for so many reasons we haven't even mentioned. So I'm more motivated to do a meetup post Carlisle and do it right and like make it like our own little mini event. You guys can bring your friends, bring your significant others, like all of that sort of stuff. Like I want to give people enough time to figure it out. So if we like, what is it, April now? If we try to do something end of June, July, August, like July, August-ish would probably be a really good time frame. You know, kiddos going back to school and stuff after that. So
or even September.
Again, if you guys are in the supporter group, one of you throw up a thing up there and we'll use that as the thread to kind of figure out dates and stuff like that. It's very, very early in the planning phase, but I think it'll work out. It'll be fun.
Yeah, I agree. But yeah, we'll keep you guys posted. And then we'll chat more at Carlisle, obviously, too. Before we sign off, I think we should talk really quick about that truck.
That truck. It's an amazing truck. Perfect piece of engineering.
I know. That truck. Really quick, just because if you just Google it and literally just go Fox 2024 Silverado build, it'll be the first thing that comes up is on the drive. I don't know if you guys saw, but I did a reel today, really quick before a stream. Published it around like 6:30ish or whatever. But for like many years now, we've been teased for sort of like the mid-engine Corvette, if you will. For decades, like we're gonna get a mid-engine Corvette, we're gonna get a mid-engine Corvette. Well, the Chevy Silverado has also been like, we're gonna get a Raptor fighter, we're gonna get a Raptor fighter since like what seems like the dawn of time. And then meanwhile, Dodge is over here making the TRX, and we're like, yeah, we got one. Cool. We're gonna be over here at Chevy not making one, which I don't know why they've never done it. I don't. It makes zero sense. But Chevy has never been like, oh yeah, we're gonna make one. So Fox, as in Fox shocks and off-road gear, they ended up making one. They made a 700 horsepower F-150 fighter, and it's got like basically the same suspension or similar suspension to the F-150 Raptor, with those like live, what's it called? the
Wires?
live whatever shocks. Yeah, no, the live whatever shocks,
Lime wire?
live valves or live valve shocks or something. The suspension on this thing looks wild
Yeah,
because
the
it's a
shots of it going over the bumps and seeing just how much articulation there is really
yeah,
impressive.
it's sick. This thing is so cool. I mean, so is a TRX and so is a Raptor. So it's in good company. This thing's sick. Like Chevy should make this, but Fox was basically like, well, Chevy's not doing it, so we're gonna do it. So it's the 6.2 V8 in any Chevy truck product that you'd find, but they slapped a Whipple on it and makes 700 horsepower, which seems to be the number for these trucks. Raptor R, I think, is like what, 710, 715 or whatever. TRX is 700, 705, whatever. This is 700, so they're all pretty comparable. They're gonna make 500 of these, and in the comments I've found people are saying it's gonna be around 200K.
Yeah, I mean, limited production run, not by an OEM, by a...
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? It's like...
Yeah,
is
they'll
that...
sell all of them.
Oh, 100% they'll sell all of them. And like 3 of them will see off-road use.
Yep, pretty much.
But like, here's the thing, right? If you're smart and you're at Chevy and you're looking at... I mean, let's be real, though. Raptor Rs are fetching like $170,000. So this isn't
Yeah, it's not far off.
that much more expensive when you're talking that kind of money.
Yep.
But like, if Chevy's smart, they're like, huh, this is a good case study for it. Maybe we should think about doing one of our own. I still think, like, look, like, if that's the last bastion of like hardcore internal combustion, high performance engines and stuff like that, sign me up. I love trucks like this. Love them.
Yeah.
And
it's pretty sick. I gotta be honest. It looks really good.
They have all the... It's not like, you know, Ram was just like, well, that Hellcat motor is over there is just sitting doing nothing. Put it in a Ram.
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, what about 100%. All the
100%.
manner of the supercharged V8s they've been stuffing into Corvettes and Camaros and Cadillacs for that matter? Like, they have the engines. You know, and Doug makes the great point. Like, it's a V8. It's 100% sound. That's the biggest complaint with the second-gen Raptor. And even the third-gen now with the EcoBoost. It's like, okay, great performance. A lot of reasons why you would do it engineering-wise. Not exactly what we think of when you think of, like, Baja, right? Like, the noises that stick to you when you watch one of the Dust to Glory documentaries. If you haven't watched Dust to Glory, go watch it. Thank me later.
Yeah.
The second one's a little weird, but like the first one, all-time great document, like one of the best car enthusiast, truck enthusiast documentaries ever. It's a phenomenal piece.
100%.
But you have these screaming pushrod V8s going through the Mexican desert, not a screaming V6. Like, it's and not. I maintain this. Like the EcoBoost and any guys have never really sounded that great. And there's a disconnect because, like, you hear EcoBoost and then all of a sudden it's a Raptor. You're like, wait, what? And it's incredibly capable. So, like, look, there's obviously a market for this type of stuff. It's going to be the new hotness. Make it for 2-3 years. You don't have to make it for forever. Right? You know, have it. And, like, the thing that made the TRX so great was, like, it wasn't really trying to be anything other than a Ram with a beefed up suspension and a pissed off engine, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then they just decided to start throwing little Easter eggs, like the scene from Jurassic Park where the T-Rex is just taking out the Raptors. Little stuff like that. If you had, like, I don't know what you would do that level, but like, I don't know, put an asteroid on it somewhere, took out all the dinosaurs. Right? Like little Easter eggs, little things like that. Like little things to get people talking. Little things that like would get a Chevy owner that cock extension over their buddy with the Ford or their buddy with the Ram or something like that. And I love trucks like this. The TRX, the Raptor R, or the Raptor and any guys really, they are supercars they are just designed to be super on a different medium than what we traditionally think of a supercar.
Yep.
You know, this isn't going to carve up a road course, but it's going to be one of the fastest production things on dirt.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, that's...
I mean, what did Jason Kamisa just do? He drag raced a Bronco Raptor against something, and it, like, was basically even with it. But that's the same thing with all these, the Raptor, this thing, and the TRX. Like, you take any of these off-road, and it'll be just
Well,
as
no,
fast as most
he
sports
did
cars
one where he
on
did
road.
a drag race with, I think it was like the Acura Type R, the old one, the new Acura Type S, then a couple other of those like cars of that ilk, and did a drag race, and then did a drag race for fun with the Raptor involved, but the Raptor was not on pavement.
Yeah,
Like,
that's right. Yeah, which is pretty impressive, to be honest.
you know, like I would
But
love a Bronco Raptor but again, it's like I would always want to Godzilla swap it or something. You know, like
yeah,
I would always have that in the back of my head.
yeah. See you, Sean.
Take it
Catch you
easy.
next week,
Take it
brother.
easy, Sean. Get the whatever it is, the hydroelectric plant that you use out in the backwoods, fired up. Get that phone charged. But yeah,
Get
like
that hamster running in the wheel.
yeah, exactly. Hit the incline bike or the stationary bike. But like,
That's right.
I mean, number one, Fox off-road suspension. You know that's going to be good. It's got a supercharged, basically LS, like LS LT, like mostly the same. So, unfortunately, Christian, you did. It's the first hour and 15 minutes of the show. If you want to go back and watch it, I will be cutting that up and making a YouTube video out of that in the coming days. So if you want to look for that, that's also going to be a thing. But so like this thing's going to perform incredibly. It looks awesome. I would have liked to have seen a bigger bull bar in the front, more of a deer slayer type of approach. But like this stuff, like I love stuff like this, and I do honestly think this is we're going to go back. Like, so you remember Shelby was separate from Ford. They got licensing from Ford, but they're their own entity. Then they sort of merged with Ford Performance, and that's how we've gotten the GT350 and the GT500 of the S550 generation. But I do think that you're going to start to see these performance houses coming up and starting to offer limited runs of everybody says they should make this version of this car or truck or whatever. And they're like, okay, we have the know-how. How do we do the production side of it? And if they can figure that out, I think you're going to see a lot more stuff like this pop up, right? Like something like this, something like, maybe a performance house looks at the new Charger and goes, fuck, you're straight six. We're putting a V8 in it. And they make 500 of those, right? Like, I do think you're going to see a lot of it. And the biggest problem is that one, the cost. I mean, it's a supercar on the dirt. It's a supercar in the fucking wallet too. So,
right.
Christian, that works too. I'm hoping life doesn't throw me any more, Molotov cocktails, and I'm gonna start uploading podcasts again next week. So
We'll start with this one.
Yeah, we'll start with this, and then I'll go back and like all this. So I think kind of put a bow on that, and then kind of wrap up the show a little bit. I love stuff like this. I think I need to see more of it. I wish it was more. I wish there was someone out there doing stuff like this that was perceived to be obtainable, right? Like, it's one thing can you make something this insane for $60,000? Maybe not. But if you could do it for like 75, like have the feel and the look and the capability with the noise. Because let's face it, you could probably have just as much fun in this thing with 500 horsepower as you can with 700.
Oh, for sure.
So,
at least for a normal person, for like us, yeah, absolutely.
right. And again,
I mean,
there's
to really squeeze out the amount of performance this thing has, you need to be a fantastically adept off-roader. Not as far, not even just like just normal off-roading, but also like performance off-roading, and that takes a very special skill set.
Yeah. So, but I dig it, man. Like, I think.
Yeah, it's cool.
It looks badass, and
yeah,
if the insurance company goofs and gives me a check with one extra zero, it might be.
It is then in budget.
Yeah. But
what's the monopoly thing? Bank error in your favor.
Yeah, it's like paperwork signed. You signed it. It's mine now.
Yep. Too bad. Thanks for that $400,000. Time to buy a house and one of these.
Well, actually, it'd probably be a house or a garage. I get a house, but like
time to build a garage with a loft and one of these.
I don't know. I something with on-road fun, but
yes.
I think that's a good stop. Thanks again to everyone who tuned in, commented, liked, shared,
Yes.
all of that sort of stuff. Thank you to everyone who again was showed their support during the Mustang saga. I appreciate everyone. I can't. It's pretty hard to put into words. Like when you start getting texts from people that you've seen in person maybe once.
Yeah.
Showing their support. That was cool. That was really, really cool. So thanks again. Greg, thank you for sharing your extremely difficult financial moment with your $5,100 spent on the Polestar.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. And again, thank you to Greg.
Greg
Greg and Hanson have been crazy supportive during this whole process too. So like,
yeah, of course.
Thank you so much to them. But yeah, that's going to do it for this show, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll catch you next week.